Venezuela sits on one of the largest oil reserves on Earth, more oil than Saudi Arabia, the United States, or any other nation. Yet today, most Venezuelans struggle just to survive. How did this happen? At its peak, petroleum made up more than 90% of Venezuela's export earnings and was the engine of its economy. But instead of using this oil wealth to build a strong, diversified economy, the country became dangerously dependent on a single resource. Oil from the Orinoco Belt is heavy and expensive to extract, but even more damaging was what happened after the boom. Years of underinvestment and mismanagement left the state oil company with aging infrastructure and declining production. Instead of reinvesting revenue into technology, infrastructure, and long-term growth, governments spent heavily on social programs, subsidies, and political projects. This created a fragile economy tied to volatile oil prices. When crude prices collapsed, so did government revenue. With little diversification and weakening institutions, Venezuela slid into an economic crisis. Hyperinflation erased the value of savings, shortages became common, and the local currency lost nearly all its purchasing power. Millions struggled to afford food, medicine, and basic necessities. Political interference and corruption further drained the wealth from the oil sector. Skilled workers left, production capacity declined, and the economy shrank dramatically. At its worst, poverty rates exceeded 80%, and inflation reached levels unmatched in modern history. So while Venezuela remains rich in natural resources on paper, the wealth never translated into broad prosperity. Instead, decades of mismanagement, prolonged dependence on oil, and weak institutions turned black gold into a curse rather than a blessing. If you want to understand how nations rise and how wealth can slip through their fingers, make sure you subscribe to Nation Decoded and turn on notifications. We break down the real forces shaping the fate of countries.